Welcome to the Deep Dive, your shortcut to becoming well-informed by extracting the most crucial insights from a pile of sources. Okay, let's unpack this. Today, our mission, really, is to figure out what makes some ideas stick in your head, while others just vanish.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
We've got some great stuff here, excerpts from a book that dives right into this. It looks at everything from urban legends to marketing campaigns that actually work.
It really does. It promises a journey into understanding how to make messages resonate.
So get ready, because we're about to explore those principles that make things genuinely memorable.
Well, it's interesting how they start, right, with the kidney heist urban legend.
Oh, yeah, that one.
Think about it. The drugged drink, waking up in a bathtub full of ice, the missing kidney. That story just has this incredible staying power, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. You hear it once, and parts of it just lodge in your brain. The vulnerability, the horror.
Exactly. And the book asks why.
Yeah.
Why that story? What makes those specific details stick so hard?
Which leads to that bigger question, doesn't it? Are some ideas just naturally sticky, born interesting? Or is it something else?
Like, is it nature versus nurture for ideas?
Yeah. Is a story like the kidney heist just inherently gripping while, I don't know, explaining tax policy is doomed to be dull?
Well, the book argues pretty strongly for nurture. That stickiness isn't just luck, it's crafted. It's something you build into the idea.
So you can learn how to do it.
That's the premise. They want to give us a framework, a way to cultivate our messages so they actually take root. Because we've all been there, right? Trying to explain something important.
Oh, definitely. A new strategy at work, or even just trying to get a point across to a friend.
And you just see it sliding off them. The message doesn't land. It's frustrating.
So this framework they propose, it's called Successes.
That's it. SUCCESS. It's an acronym. Makes it easier to remember the 6 key things.
Okay, what are they?
Simple, unexpected, concrete, credible, emotional, and stories.
Got it. Successes. Simple, unexpected, concrete, credible, emotional, stories. These are like the building blocks.
Kind of the secret sauce, yeah.
Yeah.
The principles you need to make messages cut through all the noise and actually leave an impression.
All right, let's dive into the first one then. Simple. What do they mean by simple? Just short?
Not quite. It's not about dumbing it down or just being brief. It's about finding the absolute core of the idea. Distilling it.
The core. Like the single most important thing.
Exactly. Think of the military concept they mentioned, commander's intent. It's that one single objective that guides everything, even when the plan goes sideways.
Okay, give me an example.
Southwest Airlines, their core. The low-fare airline. That's it.
A low-fare airline.
Right. And that single idea drives everything, every decision. Should we add a fancy meal? Well, does it help us be the low-fare airline? No. Then forget it.
Ah, I see. So fun at work is okay.
As long as it doesn't jack up the ticket prices. It's a filter for decisions.
That makes sense. It reminds me of journalism, actually, finding the lead of the story.
Yeah. How so?
Well, you have all this information, but you have to figure out the most important thing and put it up front. Otherwise, you bury the lead.
That's a great analogy. It's forced prioritization. What is the one thing you absolutely must get across?
If you try to say too much,
You end up saying nothing. The book has that great line. If you say 3 things, you don't say anything. It just dilutes the message. Everything gets blurry.
it's like political campaigns too, right? They need that simple core message.
Absolutely. James Carville for Bill Clinton back in '92. It's the economy. Stupid.
Classic. So simple, so direct, cut through everything else.
Nailed it. And that focus is crucial. The book even touches on decision paralysis.
How does that connect?
Well, uncertainty and too many choices make it hard to act. They mention a study about a Hawaii vacation deal.
Yeah.
Students were less likely to book it, even though it was a great deal, if they were uncertain about an upcoming exam grade. The mental clutter of uncertainty blocked the simple decision.
Interesting. And too much choice can freeze you up too.
Right, like another study comparing choosing a lecture versus studying independently. Too many options led to inaction. It's overwhelming.
Like standing in the cereal aisle for 10 minutes.
Exactly. Sometimes simpler is just easier to process. There's this local newspaper example too, the Daily Record.
What's their core?
Super simple. Names, names, and names.
Seriously?
Yep. For decades, that's guided what they cover. Focus on local people. It's concrete and simple.
So simple is core, but it's also compact, like easy to grasp.
Yes, exactly. Like Proverbs, a bird in the hand.
Is worth 2 in the bush. Short, memorable, packs a punch.
Precisely. Or think about Hollywood pitches. High concept pitches.
Like Die Hard on a bus.
Perfect example. That was the pitch for Speed. Instantly understandable. Core idea right there.
And they also talk about generative analogies. What's that?
It's like a metaphor that doesn't just explain something, but helps you think about it in a new way, creates new insights.
Okay. Like what?
Disney calling their employees cast members.
Ah, right. That changes everything. It's not just a job. It's a role and a performance.
Exactly. It generates a whole way of thinking about customer service,
Yeah.
the park experience.
Right.
It shapes behavior. It's simple, but powerful.
Okay, that's simple. What's next? Unexpected.
Unexpected. This one's all about grabbing attention. How do you do that? You break a pattern.
Break a pattern.
Yeah, our brains are wired to notice change, things that deviate from what we expect, like a sudden loud noise on a quiet street.
It grabs you immediately, like that flight attendant story they mentioned.
Oh, right. Instead of the usual boring safety spiel, she started cracking jokes. Completely unexpected.
And people actually listened for once.
Exactly. Surprise gets attention. But the book says you need more than just attention. You need to hold it.
Right. Attention is fleeting.
So surprise is key. Think about that surprise brow expression we all make.
The raised eyebrows.
Yeah, it's biological. When our expectations are violated, we snap to attention. We need to figure out why things didn't happen as expected so we can update our mental model.
But isn't some surprise just gimmicky, like a cheap jump scare?
Totally. And the book makes that distinction. You need meaningful surprise, what they call post-dictable.
Post-dictable, meaning?
Meaning it makes sense after the fact. It leads to an insight. It's not just random. It fits into a larger picture once you understand it. The surprise should teach you something.
So the goal is break someone's guessing machine, their assumptions.
And then fix it. Show them the new pattern, the reason behind the surprise. Nordstrom is a great example here.
They're customer service stories.
Exactly. Like the Nordy who supposedly ironed a customer's shoe before a meeting or took back tires even though they don't sell tires. These stories are unexpected. They break our usual assumptions about retail.
And they build that legendary reputation. Okay, I get it. What about that journalism class example?
Nor Ephron's class. Yeah, that's brilliant. The teacher gives them facts for a news story.
Mundane facts.
Right. Principal's name, meeting times.
Mm.
But buried at the end is the real news. The entire faculty is going out of town for a conference, so school's canceled.
Ah, that's the unexpected twist. That's the story.
Exactly. It breaks the pattern of a routine announcement. Another powerful one is about foreign aid stats.
Okay.
Most people assume the U.S. gives a huge percentage of its wealth in aid, right?
Probably, yeah.
But the unexpected truth is, proportionally, it's actually quite low compared to many other developed nations.
Yeah. Okay, that is surprising.
And they show how you can make that stick by comparing aid to Africa, say, with the cost of one B-2 bomber. That contrast is unexpected and really hits home.
So surprise grabs attention, but how do you keep it for more complex stuff?
Well, that's where mystery comes in.
Mystery.
Yeah. The book quotes Robert Cialdini saying the aha moment is more satisfying if it's preceded by a huh.
Okay, huh. Then aha. Makes sense. We like puzzles.
We're drawn to incompleteness. We want resolution. Think about the rings of Saturn.
When they were first discovered.
Total mystery. What does it get? That huh drove decades of observation and thinking until the aha, figuring out they were particles, ice, dust.
And this leads to the gap theory of curiosity.
Right. Curiosity happens when we feel a gap in our knowledge, that little itch of, I don't know that, but I want to.
Like watching a good movie trailer that hints at things but doesn't give it all away.
Exactly. It opens gaps. So effective communication isn't just about dumping information. It's about opening those gaps first.
Make people aware of what they don't know.
Precisely. Pose questions, present puzzles, make them feel the gap before you fill it. Think about news teasers. Coming up next, the common household item that could be dangerous. They make you ask the question.
Instead of just stating the fact up front.
Right. And it counters overconfidence, too. People often think they know more than they do. Highlighting a knowledge gap sparks curiosity.
Like that Rune Arledge example with college football.
Perfect. He made people across the country care about, say, Michigan versus Ohio State by telling stories, creating context, filling in the gaps about the teams, the rivalry, the atmosphere. He didn't just show the game, he made you curious about it.
So surprise and mystery, powerful tools for attention and engagement.
Definitely. They make us want to know why. That knowledge gap creates a kind of mental itch we need to scratch.
All right, number 3, concrete. What does that mean? Not abstract.
Exactly. Use your senses. Can you see it, hear it, touch it, taste it, smell it? If yes, it's concrete.
So instead of maximizing shareholder value, maybe talk about specific profits or stock price.
You got it. Abstraction is the luxury of the expert, the book says. When you talk to a wider audience, you need concrete language. Everyone needs to be on the same page.
Like fables, the sour grapes story.
Perfect example. That message about rationalizing what you can't have sticks because the image is so concrete. The fox, the grapes, just out of reach.
If it was just explained as cognitive dissonance, it wouldn't last centuries, would it?
Not a chance. And that's the problem with so much business speak, isn't it?
Yeah.
Synergistic alignment, leveraging best practices. It's abstract mush.
Sounds important, means little.
We need more modern fables, the book suggests. Concrete stories encoding abstract truths.
What about the Nature Conservancy example? They had trouble with abstraction.
Yeah, initially they talked about saving acres. Big numbers, but still abstract. Hard for people to connect emotionally.
So what did they change?
They shifted to focusing on preserving specific, named landscapes, like the Mount Hamilton Wilderness. Suddenly, it's a real place with unique features you can picture.
Makes it much more tangible, more real.
Exactly. And easier to care about, especially for locals. Concreteness helps understanding, too, even in maths.
How so?
The Japanese teacher using actual tiles to show subtraction. Kids could see and move the tiles, way better than just symbols on a board.
Makes sense. Visual, tactile.
Which leads to the Velcro Theory of Memory.
Velcro theory.
Yeah, concrete ideas have more hooks, like the loops on Velcro, more things for your memory to grab onto. Abstract ideas are like smooth Teflon, hard to get a grip.
Ah, I like that. More hooks. So Jane Elliott's brown eyes, blue eyes experiment. That's intensely concrete, isn't it?
Yeah. Absolutely. She didn't just talk about prejudice. She made her students experience discrimination based on eye color. It was visceral, unforgettable, a direct, concrete experience.
Wow. Powerful. And concreteness can bridge communication gaps, like between different teams.
Right. The engineers and manufacturers arguing about a machine. Abstract descriptions didn't work.
What did?
Focusing on the actual physical machine. The concrete object became the common language they could both understand.
Okay. And HP at Disney World, making e-services concrete.
Yeah, they created an interactive exhibit. People could see and do things that demonstrated the benefits, instead of just hearing abstract buzzwords about collaboration.
And the early laptop pitch, not abstract specs, but...
Kaplan described it concretely, like a notebook operated by a pen. You could picture it immediately.
So much clearer. What about Hamburger Helper?
They sent their team into customers' homes, the Fingertips program. Made customer convenience totally concrete, not just a marketing phrase.
And Saddleback Church, creating Saddleback Sam.
A detailed, concrete profile of their target audience member helped them make tangible decisions about everything they did.
So concreteness seems fundamental and maybe easier to implement than some others.
The book suggests so. The biggest barrier isn't skill, it's just forgetting. Experts forget what it's like not to know, and they slip into abstraction. We need to remember to get concrete.
Okay, moving on to credible. Ideas need to be believable, right? But we can't all quote Nobel laureates.
Exactly. How do you make your idea carry its own credentials? That's the challenge.
They talk about the stomach ulcer story, Marshall and Warren.
Yeah, classic case. They argued bacteria, not stress, caused ulcers. The medical world was hugely skeptical. It flew in the face of common sense at the time.
How they finally convinced people.
Years of research, persistence, and Marshall even deliberately infected himself with the bacteria to prove the link. Dramatic, but ultimately credible. It was a tough slog, though.
Shows how hard it can be to establish credibility for something new. But credibility can also be faked, right?
Oh, easily. The book mentions that scary rumor about flesh-eating bacteria.
Necrotizing fasciitis.
Yeah. Part of why it spread was because it was attributed to the official-sounding Mannheim Research Institute. Gave it a veneer of credibility, even if the science wasn't there.
So how do you build real credibility?
Well, sometimes it comes from powerful personal stories, like the Truth Anti-Smoking campaign using Pam Laffin's story.
The woman with emphysema.
Right. Her sharing her real, painful experience was incredibly credible. Raw, human, believable. It wasn't just statistics, it was a life affected.
So vivid details help, but they have to be the right details, authentic ones.
Exactly. Truthful core details, not just any vivid detail, like the dance group Last Legs Dance Ensemble.
What was their detail?
They claimed diversity. Okay, fine. But the detail that made it credible, mentioning a 73-year-old former government worker was one of their dancers.
That specific detail makes the claim instantly believable. It provides internal credibility.
Precisely. And when you do use stats, you need to make them accessible, human scale.
Like the nuclear warheads as BBs analogy.
Yeah, or comparing a functional workplace to everyone on a soccer team doing their part. It translates abstract numbers into something we can grasp using existing knowledge.
Okay, what's the Sinatra test?
If you can make it there, you can make it anywhere.
Yeah.
Basically, if you can succeed at one extremely difficult task, it proves your capability for others.
Like the Indian delivery company, Safe Express.
Right. Successfully delivering both the new Harry Potter books and critical exam papers on time, two huge logistical challenges. If they could do that, you could trust them with anything. It's a powerful demonstration.
Makes sense. Prove it with a tough case.
And the edible fabrics example combines a few things. Startling details, safe enough to eat. Specific stats, only 38 out of 8,000 chemicals were safe enough. And that Sinatra test idea achieving the seemingly impossible builds credibility layers.
Sometimes you can even let the audience provide the credibility, like Wendy's.
Where's the beef? Brilliant. They didn't claim they had more beef. They just asked the question, prompting you, the viewer, to compare and conclude. Outsourcing credibility to the audience. Very clever.
And testable credentials,
Yeah.
like the emotional tank analogy in coaching.
Yeah, giving people a tool or concept they can try out themselves and see if it works. If it does, the underlying idea gains credibility.
And we need to be aware of our biases too, right? Like the availability bias.
Definitely.
Yeah.
We overestimate risks that are vivid and easily recalled, like shark attacks.
Even though drowning is far more common.
Exactly. Or tornadoes versus asthma deaths. That bias can skew how credible we find certain claims based on how dramatic the examples are.
Okay, next up, emotional. Getting people to care. Starts with Mother Teresa.
Right. That quote, "If I look at the mass, I will never act. If I look at the one, I will." That's the core principle here.
We connect with individuals, not abstract statistics.
Precisely. The charity study proves it. People gave way more money when the appeal focused on one specific girl, Rokia.
Than when it talked about millions starving in Africa.
Huge difference. We're wired for empathy towards the one, not the many. It makes the problem feel manageable, relatable.
And the anti-smoking campaigns showed this too.
Big time. The Truth campaign, full of emotion and personal stories, works much better than the more analytical think, don't smoke campaign. You have to make people feel something, make them care.
But you can overdo emotional words, can't you? Semantic stretch.
Yeah, that's the danger. Words like unique, revolutionary, paradigm shift get used so much they lose all meaning, all emotional punch.
So how do you create real emotion?
Sometimes it's about reclaiming meaning, like defining sportsmanship with concrete examples of great conduct, especially when negative examples are prominent. And tapping into self-interest is huge.
The WIIFY, what's in it for me?
Always powerful. Think of that classic ad headline. "They laughed when I sat down at the piano."
But when I started to play, taps right into that desire for respect, overcoming doubt.
Absolutely. But the book warns against staying in Maslow's basement.
Meaning, don't just appeal to basic needs like food and shelter.
Right. People are motivated by higher things too: belonging, esteem, purpose, transcendence. Think of Floyd Lee in Iraq.
The guy who transformed the mess hall.
Yeah. He wasn't just feeding soldiers basic need. He was boosting morale, creating community, appealing to their sense of dignity and well-being in a tough place, moving beyond the basement.
And appealing to identity works too. Like, don't mess with Texas.
Phenomenally successful. It wasn't about fines or environmentalism. It was about Texan pride. Real Texans don't litter. Tapped right into their identity.
So emotion often comes from the particular, the individual, the identity, not the broad strokes.
Exactly. Focus on the one to move the many.
Which leads perfectly into the last principle, stories.
Ah, yes. Stories. The book calls them flight simulators for the brain. I love
And
that.
flight simulators, how so?
They let us mentally rehearse situations, play things out in our heads. When you hear a story, especially a detailed one, you mentally simulate the events, the decisions, the challenges.
Like the nurse's story about the heart monitor problem.
Exactly. Even with the jargon, her colleagues listening could mentally walk through the troubleshooting process she described. It prepares them.
So hearing a story is almost like practicing.
In a way, yes. Mental simulation helps with problem solving, planning, anticipating obstacles. It makes learning more active.
And stories provide context that plain facts often lack.
Definitely. Think about that Xerox repairman story about the specific error code, EO53. Much more memorable and useful than just seeing that code listed in a manual warning. The story gives it context and consequence.
Stories can also inspire, right? Like Jared from Subway.
Classic challenge plot. One person overcoming a huge obstacle. hugely motivating for others facing similar challenges.
And the book says it's often better to spot these stories than try to invent them.
Yeah, look for naturally occurring stories that embody the message you want to convey. They often have more authenticity.
And there are basic story plots that tend to work.
They highlight three main inspirational ones: the challenge plot, overcoming obstacles like Jared; the connection plot, bridging a gap, people coming together;
Okay.
and the creativity plot, the moment of insight, the breakthrough, like Newton and the apple, maybe?
And springboard stories, what are they?
Stories that inspire people to act, like the World Bank worker in Zambia using the internet to solve a critical health problem. It shows what's possible and motivates others to try similar things.
It seems stories are just everywhere in how we communicate effectively. The conference storybook idea.
Right. The most memorable things from conferences are often the stories shared, not the bullet points. It underlines how fundamental narrative is.
And remember Carville's whiteboard? The other two phrases he had besides, "It's the economy, stupid."
Yeah, they weren't story-like. They didn't stick. They didn't have that narrative punch.
Okay, so we have the 6 principles. Success. But there's one big villain lurking behind failed communication.
The curse of knowledge. The arch-villain, as the book calls it.
Which is
Once you know something well, it's incredibly difficult, almost impossible, to remember what it felt like not to know it.
you can't put yourself back in the beginner's shoes.
Exactly. And that gap makes communication really hard. The classic example is the Stanford tapping experiment.
Where people tapped out songs?
Yeah. The tappers could hear the melody and accompaniment in their heads, so they massively overestimated how many listeners would guess the simple tune just from the rhythm. They were cursed by their knowledge of the song.
That makes so much sense. Experts assume their audience has the same context and understanding.
Right. The book breaks communication into 2 stages. The answer stage, figuring it out yourself, and the telling others stage. Experts nail the first part, but often fail at the second because of the curse. They forget the listener doesn't have all their background knowledge or mental shortcuts.
So how do we fight the curse?
Well, the 6 ES principles are basically the antidote.
Use them consciously.
Exactly. Use simple language. Find the core. Use unexpectedness to break assumptions. Use concrete examples instead of abstraction. Use credible details. Tap into emotion. Tell stories.
Create concrete turf. Get out of Maslow's basement. Use those challenge springboard stories. Simplify to proverbs.
You got it. There are the tools to bridge that knowledge gap.
So the big takeaway then is that making ideas stick. It's not magic. It's learnable.
Absolutely. It takes work, awareness, using these principles diligently. It's not just about natural charisma. Anyone can do it better.
Like Jane Elliott, the teacher with the eye color experiment. She wasn't famous, but she created an incredibly sticky, impactful experience.
A perfect example. It shows the power of applying these ideas effectively.
So wrapping up those 6 Sex principles, simple, unexpected, concrete, credible, emotional stories, that's the toolkit.
That's the framework for making ideas understandable, memorable, and actually change things.
But always remembering to fight that curse of knowledge, to really think about communication from the audience's perspective.
Crucial. You have to translate your expertise into their language.
Okay, that was our deep dives into making ideas stick. So what does this all mean for you listening right now? Well, here's something to think about. Take a message you really want to share, maybe at work, maybe with family. How could you apply just one of these SCCS principles to make it clearer, more memorable, more impactful? Just pick one and see what changes. It's a really powerful way to look at how we communicate every day.